today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this cinematic environment in Blender from scratch. I'm basically just going to be showing you how I created this specific environment, but also giving you guys tips on how to make a cinematic scene in general, and just overall give you guys some tips that will hopefully help you on your own creation. One thing that is super important when it comes to creating environments is reference. There's a lot of times when I want to create something, but I always find myself just sitting in the void of the Blender viewport, not knowing where to start or how to even approach this. That's why before I even open Blender, I make sure I have at least like a few images that I can use as references or inspiration. For this environment, for example, I used a website called Milano, and I created a mood board with a bunch of images that I found on Google and Pinterest, just so I can get a better idea of the sort of mood and direction I want to take upon creating this environment. So once you've got an idea of what kind of environment you want to create, now we can start creating it. In Blender, I set my resolution to 3440 by 1440. You can make it whatever you want, but in my opinion, the really widescreen resolutions are the most cinematic. Then I first started off by creating a plane. Next, I added a 3D model of a mannequin and used this more as reference, just to get an idea of the scaling and positioning of my environment. Also, as you can see on the right side of my screen, I have a collection of a whole bunch of 3D models / scans. And I got all these models for free on websites such as Sketchfab, CG Trader, TurboSquid, and etc. I'll leave a link to all these links in the description. These are really useful if you just want to get quick 3D models, and especially if you don't like modeling like me. Next, I adjusted my camera at a lower angle for composition purposes. Then I added some 3D rock scans, which I actually ended up deleting later in the video and replaced them with mountains. And as you can see right here, the rock is kind of disappearing, so to fix that, just click on your camera and in the camera settings, increase the N value. Next, in the shader tab, I switched it from object to world, and in the world settings, I added a sky texture. Now you can decrease or increase the strength and adjust the other settings to your liking. Then I added this Japanese torii. I think it's called a torii. If it's called something else, correct me if I'm wrong. And I placed it above the ground because I wanted to make stairs leading up to it. Next, select your plane and go into edit mode, and right click, and you're going to want to subdivide your plane quite a bit. Then go into sculpt mode, and this is how you can create hills in your scene. The main sculpt tools I used were draw, inflate, and smooth. Then I added in my stone stairs model and positioned it on the hill. Then I went back into sculpt mode. Then I went back into sculpt mode to clean it up, mainly using the smooth tool. And now we can start making our grass. To do this step, I used an add-on called BOTANIQ, something like that. And this add-on allows you to simply add realistic grass and tree assets into your scene pretty much instantly. And I'll also leave a link to this add-on in the description. And you can lower the amount by decreasing the emission number. And if you just want to decrease or increase the amount of flowers, you can do this by changing the value of the basic A and the basic D. Increasing the number will decrease the amount, and decreasing the number will increase the amount. Yeah. You can also adjust the scaling. Then I added a rock and scaled it up just to add a little bit more to the ground. Next, I ended up deleting the rocks in the background and placed in some low poly mountains. I feel like this gave it more depth to the scene, and overall it gave it a better look. I also played around with different looks with the sky. Instead of a sky texture, I added in an HDRI of a sunset. And you can click on the image texture and hit Ctrl-T, and now you can adjust the positioning and rotation of the HDRI. It definitely gave a nice look to the scene, but not quite what I was looking for, so I ended up just using the sky texture again. Then I added some stone lanterns and positioned them like so. But the scene still felt empty, so I added a well, and I feel like this definitely made the shot feel a little bit more full. Then back to the add-on, I added some trees and kind of scattered them around the scene, and I feel like this was like the final piece that made this environment work. Next, I wanted to add a stone path to the stairs, so I started by adding a plane and I extruded the edges to get somewhat of a path. Then by selecting one of the vertices and hitting Ctrl-Shift-B, you can make it round so it's not just a sharp corner. Then I created a material and added a cobblestone texture. And as you can see, there's definitely something wrong with this, so to fix it, go over to the UV editor and go into edit mode, then selecting everything, click U on your keyboard and select unwrap. And now you can scale it up to adjust the size of the texture. And if you scale it up too much, the texture will start to tile, but you can't really see it in the shot, so I just left it how it was. Next, in the material settings, go down and open the settings option and change bump only to displacement and bump. Now in the shader editor, you can adjust the displacement settings so that it doesn't just look like a flat plane. Then I added some rocks to the ground the same way we added the grass and decreased the amount. Now, as you can see, the grass kind of goes through the stone path, and that's not super realistic. So to fix that, select your ground and go into the weight paint tab. Now you can paint over the areas you want the grass to be. And once that's done, in the add-on, you can scroll down till you see the paint tab and assign the density and length to the group that was created. And now the grass should be where you painted. Next, we're going to want to create a focus point. This is also another important step to make something look cinematic. We're first going to create a plane axis and place it in the area you want in focus. Then rename it to focus point. And in the camera settings, check the depth of field box and assign the focus object to the focus point. Now you can decrease the f-stop, and the lower you set this, the more blurry the background will be. And finally, I added a cube and scaled it up so that it fit the entire scene. Then in the viewport display, change it from texture to wire. Now create a material and delete the principled BSDF. And add a volume scatter node, then plug it into the volume. And once you decrease the density, you can see there's a nice haze around the scene. But I actually decided to put this in the background so that there was more depth. But looking back at it, I actually think it probably would have looked better if I just kept the haze in the foreground. But it's really up to you. But if you follow these steps, you should have something like this. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, definitely hit that like, subscribe, and comment some more video ideas. I will see you guys next week.